Good morning students, welcome to the class. Hope all are doing well. So we are continuing with our chapter body fluids and blood circulation. So in the last class we discussed about body fluids. Now we are going to discuss about blood circulation. Okay. So blood circulation, circulatory patterns. If you are seeing, there are two types of circulatory pattern. What are they? One is your open circulatory system and another one is your closed circulatory system. As we have already learned what is open circulatory system and closed circulatory system. In open circulatory system, you cannot find the blood vessels present which is carrying blood only through the blood vessels to different parts. Like that, you cannot find any blood vessels with capillaries such like that. The heart, when it is pumping the blood, it is pumping the blood into open spaces. So that sort of circulatory system we call it as what? Open circulatory system. And another one is your closed circulatory system. Closed circulatory system is the circulatory system which we have. So the blood is flowing through what? Particular blood vessels, isn't it? Arteries, veins and capillaries are carrying blood and the blood is flowing only through that blood vessels. It is not being pumped into the open spaces. When the blood is getting pumped by the heart, it is going to the veins as well as the arteries, isn't it? So that sort of circulatory system we call it as what? Closed circulatory system. Okay. So this open circulatory system, where do you find? We have discussed it is found in arthropods, molluscs, isn't it? So insects and all, we have done that they are having an open circulatory system and blood is pumped by the heart into the open spaces or body cavities, and those body cavities we call it as sinuses. What do we call them? We call them as sinuses. Okay. And next is your closed circulatory system, where it is seen in annelids, chordates. Chordates means we having backbone, isn't it? So here the blood is pumped by the heart is always circulate through a closed network of blood vessels. So through the closed network only what is being done? The blood is being pumped. Okay. So this sort of circulatory system we call it as what? The closed circulatory system which is seen in us. Now chambers of the heart. Based on the number of chambers of the heart, there are two-chambered heart animals having two-chambered heart, animals having three-chambered heart and animals having four-chambered heart. Okay. Now when you are saying this two-chambered heart is present in case of your pisces, that is fishes. Three-chambered heart we have learned in amphibians you can find, isn't it? And you can find four-chambered heart in case of us. When you are seeing mammals, they are having four-chambered heart. Two-chambered means what? One ventricle and one auricle. Okay. So one auricle and one ventricle, one atrium and one ventricle is present. And if it is three-chambered heart, you can find two auricles or two atria and one ventricle. Four-chambered heart means what? How many chambers are there? Four chambers. So two atria and two ventricles are present. So based on the number of chambers of heart, you can find the organisms are having two-chambered heart or three-chambered heart or four-chambered heart. Okay. Now human circulatory system, you know which is the main part of the human circulatory system, the pumping organ which is the heart. So if you are looking into the human circulatory system, what are the different parts? It consists of a muscular chambered heart. Yes, it is made up of cardiac muscles, restless muscles continuously working. Network of blood vessels are present, blood capillaries are also present. So these are making what? The blood, that is the circulatory system, blood vascular system or the circulatory system. What are they? They are the blood vessels, arteries and veins, blood capillaries and the heart. Okay. Now heart is derived from mesoderm. Mesoderm, you know, when you are seeing the embryo, triploplastic animals, they are having what and all? They are having endoderm, mesoderm and exoderm. So from which part the heart is originating? The heart is being formed from the mesoderm. So from the dermal layer, from the mesoderm only you can find the heart is getting formed. Where it is situated? So it is situated in the thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity means, you know, this is the neck and this one is the thorax. Thereafter you can find the abdomen, then you are having the leg, isn't it? So in the thoracic cavity only what is present? The heart is present. And when you are looking what is the size of the heart, if you are just clenching your fist, okay, you just clench your fist, you can find out the size of the heart is equivalent to one's clenched fist. Okay, so like that the heart size will be, and it is present between the lungs, tilted towards the left. It is present in the center between the two lungs, but it is tilted towards the left. Okay, so protected by double walled membranous pericardium. So this heart, if you are seeing, the heart is having how many covering? 2 covering, double walled membranous covering. These double walled membranous covering we call it as what? The pericardiums. Okay, one is the inner pericardium and another one is the outer pericardium, and in between there is a space. That space we call it as pericardial cavity, and this pericardial cavity is filled with a fluid called as pericardial fluid. And the importance of this pericardial fluid is that whenever there is a mechanical shock, means if someone bits you, means is trying to beat you onto the chest, or if you are falling down and your chest portion is being attacked, in that case what will happen is that sometimes the rib cage is protecting. In spite of that, the shock vibration can get into your heart, so it can damage your heart. Shock vibration means the pressure, even if it is, the thing is not getting hurt, it's not what is that, you cannot find the blood flowing out, but sometimes what happens, the physical pressure of that beating or falling down, that pressure passes through and it reaches the heart. In that case the heart can be damaged easily, isn't it? So for that you can find the pericardial fluid is present, and this fluid is acting as a shock absorber. They will absorb the shock waves so that the inner part of the heart is not getting attacked. Okay, so that is the role of what? This pericardial fluid. Okay, and 4 chambers are there. So when you are seeing the heart, the 4 chambers, the upper 2 we call it as the auricle or the atrium, and the lower we call it as what? The lower chamber, it's a large ventricles, isn't it? So lower one is larger in size and the auricles are smaller in size. A thick interatrium septum is present. In between the 2 atriums there is a separation, we call it as what? The interatrial septum. And in between the left and the right ventricles also there is a partition present, that when we call it as the interventricular septum. Okay, so that is one. Opening between the right atrium and the right ventricle is guarded by tricuspid wall. Now when you are seeing, this is right part, so opening between the atrium, right atrium and the ventricle is here, it is guarded by a wall called as tricuspid wall. So what is that valve called? That valve is called as what? The tricuspid wall. Okay, so tricuspid, why? Because it is having 3 flap-like structures. How many flap-like structures? 3 flap-like structures are present. That's why it is called as what? The tricuspid wall. The opening between the left auricle or the left atrium and the left ventricle, there is only 2 cups, like cup-like structures. Okay, so that one we call it as what? The bicuspid wall. This tricuspid wall, or we can call it as right auriculoventricular wall. This one is called as bicuspid wall, or we call it as left auriculoventricular wall, or we call it as mitral wall. Okay, so this is having 2 names. What are they? Tricuspid wall, right auriculoventricular wall. This one is having 3 names. What are they? One is your bicuspid wall, the second one is your left auriculoventricular wall, and the third one is your mitral wall. So these are all one and the same. Okay, so there is a bicuspid wall and there is a tricuspid wall. So tricuspid wall is made up of 3 muscular flaps, and bicuspid wall is made up of only 2 muscular flaps, or the mitral wall is made up of only 2 muscular flaps. Another one is your semilunar wall is also present. Now when you are seeing the semilunar wall, where it will be present? It will be present, I will change the color so that it will become more clear. Now where is this semilunar wall present, if you are seeing? So from the right you can find one semilunar wall is moving like this, coming out, and from the left also one semilunar wall is moving out. Okay, from the left which is moving, it is moving to aorta. Okay, it is moving to the largest artery called as what? The aorta. And other semilunar wall which is present, so this is the thing which is carried from the right, and this is the partition which is carrying substances, blood, from the left. From the left it is covered by a semilunar wall which is leading to aorta, and here the semilunar wall is leading to the lungs. Where it is going? It is going to the lungs. Okay, so from left it is going to different parts of the body. From right it is going to the lungs. Where it is going? It is going to the lungs. Okay. So both are semilunar valves. One is leading to what? The pulmonary artery, which is leading to what? The lungs, and another one is moving to aorta, which is carrying to different parts of the body. Pulmonary artery at the right and left is leading to the aorta. Okay. And these valves, when you are seeing, they are particularly directed in one direction, so that the blood flows only in one direction. So when you are seeing the structure of the heart, I have told you, so 4 valves are present, isn't it? So when you are drawing this valves, so like this, the heart is present. In that case, 4 valves are present. One is present here, that is your tricuspid, and this one is your bicuspid. Another one is present over here, which is your right, which is carrying to the pulmonary artery, to the lungs it is going, and this one is going to the aorta, which is carried to different parts, isn't it? So this valve is facing like this, so that the blood will flow like this only. This valve is facing like this, so that the blood will flow like this only. So what is the advantage of the presence of these valves? Valves are helping in unidirectional flow of the blood. The blood will flow only in one particular direction. Okay. So these are the basic concepts of what? The structure of the heart. Okay. Fine. Now this is the coverings which has been given. So I told you pericardial membranes are present. The inner pericardial membrane we call it as the visceral pericardium. The outer pericardial membrane we call it as the parietal pericardium. In between you can find a cavity present, black one, which is called as what? The pericardial cavity, filled with pericardial fluid, and they also contain some fibrous, means when you are seeing the pericardial cavity, you find that they are made up of some sort of fibrous tissue, serous fibrous tissues they are composed of. Okay. Now heart, we have discussed already the structure of heart, we will see one by one. Okay. You can find this is your left atrium and this one is your right atrium. Left atrium is leading to left ventricle, right atrium is leading to right ventricles. In between the right atrium and the right ventricle there is tricuspid valve. You can find 3 flap-like structures present, and in between the left atrium and the left ventricle there is mitral valve or the bicuspid valve, isn't it? Now one more thing is that you can find the valve, which is this one is the aortic valve. So from the left the blood is carried through the aortic valve. So this is the aortic semilunar valve, which is carrying the blood to which part? The aorta. So this red color thing is leading what? It is leading to aorta. Okay. And another one is your superior vena cava. So this one you can find one of the valve which is leading, it's not visible over here anyhow. So from the right when you are seeing, it is leading to this blue color. Okay. So from the right which is coming, it is not shown over this side, it's shown here. Okay. So this one, this particular one, if you see this particular one, this is your the valve which is carrying the blood to the pulmonary artery. From the pulmonary artery it is going to the lungs. Okay. So to the lungs it will be moving. Now this pulmonary vein, if you are seeing the pulmonary vein from where it is coming, we will discuss. Okay. Regarding the pulmonary veins, the right pulmonary vein and the left pulmonary vein, that part I have not discussed, as well as the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, that we will be discussing. Okay. Now conductive system of the heart. Okay. So heart is beating, but heart is beating because it has been regulated by some activities of the nervous system. So who is the one who is regulating? If you are seeing, there is a special structure, tissues which are present, which is helping in the heartbeat. Okay. So what is the specialized cardiac structure which is present? If you are seeing, that one we call it as the nodal tissues. What do we call them? Nodal tissue or specialized cardiac musculature is present, that is called as what? The nodal tissue. Okay. So this nodal tissue, if you are seeing, it is having types like SA node, AV node, bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. So this is the nodal tissue, conductive system of the heart. So they are specialized tissues, I told you. So sinoarterial node, this is the first tissue which is present where? On the place where the superior vena cava means this part. Okay, so this is the region of the heart, right part of the heart, wherein you can find what? The SA node is present. Who is present? The SA node is present. Okay, and there is a place where there is a junction between the what is that? The right atrium and the right ventricle. Here you can find the second set of nodal tissues present, which is called as the AV node. Thereafter you can find a structure which is present over here, that is called as the bundle of His. What do we call them? We call them as bundle of His. Okay. So this structure which is coming from the AV node, it's continuing, that is called as what? The bundle of His, which is connecting to a fibrous structure which is present over here. You can find the fibers, isn't it? So that fibers we call it as the Purkinje system. Okay. So this conducting system of the heart, when you see, it is made up of three. I told you. What are they? One is the sinoatrial node, second one is the AV node, third one is your bundle of His, and the fourth one is your what? The Purkinje fibers. Okay. So these are the conductive system of the heart. Now I told you the heart, what is the size of the heart? It is like a clenched fist. So if you are keeping your fist like this, this is the shape of your heart, this is the size of your heart. Okay. So based on your size, your heart size will be. Clenched fist, how much it is, that like that it will be. Now when you are moving on to this conductive system, so the heart has to contract. So there is some regulation which is being controlled. So these tissues are called as nodal tissues, or we call them as the pacemaker tissues of the heart. Okay. The sinoatrial node. So the first one, the sinoatrial node, which is present on the top right hand corner of the right atrium, there you can find, that is the region where the heartbeat starts, means some sort of excitation, some sort of electron flows and all, isn't it? So some sort of charge is getting flowed, because of which that is acting as a stimulus for the contraction of the auricles. Okay. So when the sinoatrial nodes gets excited, they generate impulse. Okay, they are self-excitable, means they can generate impulse themselves. Okay, so that's why we call this sinoatrial node as the pacemaker of the heart. So you would have heard this term pacemaker. So some people who are having problem with the nodal tissues, they are supposed to take what? They used to have what? The artificial pacemaker. So that is a battery like thing which is loaded. They are self generating the impulses. Okay, there the battery is getting releasing some charges, because of which that process which is carried out by the nodal tissues is being carried out by the artificial thing. Okay, so that is what the role of the pacemaker is. Okay, so that pacemaker is generating impulses, generating potential, generating a current like effect. Okay, so because that current, when it is being generated, that impulse when it is generated, that impulse is passed immediately to all the parts of the auricles. Where it is going? It is going to the different parts of the auricles. This impulse is being spread, the current is getting conducted. Immediately when this impulse is getting spread, you can find what will happen is that the auricles will contract. Okay. So when this auricle is contracting, the excitation, the impulse is passed, is taken by the next node. What is the next node? The next node is your AV node, isn't it? So the AV node, what is happening is that they are receiving the stimulus now. So it is generated by SA node, it is passed to the auricles are contracting, and the stimulus is now received by whom? This AV node. The AV node is carrying the current or the stimulus, and it is passing through the bundle of His, and it is reaching the Purkinje fibers. Now this current or the impulse is sent to what? The Purkinje fibers, which are highly distributed into the ventricles. Now what will happen is that the ventricles will contract by getting that current or the impulse. So auricle is contracting, ventricle is contracting because of what? Because of the impulses or the current which is generated by whom? This heart. So who is helping in playing this role? The nodal tissues. So what are the nodal tissues which are present? You know, the pacemaker of the heart, we call it as what? The SA node, sinoatrial node. Okay. Thereafter that sinoatrial generate impulses, and it helps in the contraction of the auricles or the arteries, and that impulses is transferred to whom? It is being transferred to the AV node. So who is this AV node? What is the full form? It is auriculoventricular node. Now through the auriculoventricular node, the impulse is getting passed through the bundle of His. From there it is moving on to the Purkinje fibers, as the diagram shows you, isn't it? So now what will happen? The ventricles will contract. So the heart has to contract. For that, SA node is playing a major role, the nodal tissues are playing a major role. In case if there is a defect in the nodal tissue, then automatically what will happen? The heart will stop functioning, they will not pump, isn't it? So there is a solution. Pacemaker tissues, pacemaker is fit into the patient who is having some heart related problems, right? Now cardiac cycle, that is the next topic. So cardiac cycles, when you are seeing, it is one cycle wherein you can find the contraction and relaxation of the heart is taking place. So it is divided into 3 stages. So cardiac cycles is the sequential event in the heart which are cyclically represented. Okay, so you can find it is represented in the form of a cycle. Okay, so the first is your auricular systole. So what is the first cycle? That is your auricular systole. Thereafter you can find it is ventricular systole, and then it is your what is that? Joint diastole. So you are having auricular systole, ventricular systole and joint diastole. Now when you are seeing the whole cycle, it does not take even 1 second. 1 second is not needed. It is only 0.8 seconds for completing one cycle. If it is 1 second, then how many times your heart should beat? It should beat only 60 times, isn't it? But normal heart rate, how much times it is beating? It is beating 72 times, which means that for one pumping it takes less than a second. So how much time it is taking? It is taking only 0.8 seconds. Okay, so in this 0.8 seconds, this auricular systole, it is only taking 0.1 second, ventricular systole is taking 0.3 seconds, joint diastole is taking 0.4 seconds. So altogether for one cardiac cycle, how much time is needed? It's 0.8 seconds. Okay, so the duration of the cardiac cycle is 0.8 seconds. You know SAN, what is SAN? Sino-arterial node, the pacemaker tissue of the heart. So the pacemaker of the heart is generating action potential. I told you, isn't it? They will allow the flow of electrons. Okay, and they will stimulate the contraction of the arteria, okay, or the auricle. This potential, that impulse is conducted to whom? It is conducted to the AV node. AV node is what? Auriculoventricular node. Okay, and that is passed through bundle of His to the Purkinje system, and which will help in the contraction of the ventricles, right? Now after both have contract, that is auricle is contracting, next ventricle is contracting, both are relaxing. That relaxation we call it as diastole, contracted phase is called as systole. So when the heart is contracting, the phase is called as systole. When the heart is relaxing, the phase is called as diastole. There is an auricular systole, there is a ventricular systole, and both will relax for some time, and then again the SA node will start its generation of action potential. Okay, so this is the event which is taking place in case of cardiac cycle. Okay, now the next topic is what is cardiac output. Listen, volume of blood pumped out by each ventricle per minute. Okay, so when the auricle is contracting, the blood is pumped to the ventricle. When the ventricle is contracting, the blood is pumped to different parts of the body and to the lungs, isn't it? So when the ventricle is contracting, how much amount of blood is passing? Okay, so it is around, it has been seen that for one contraction of the ventricles, 70 ml of the blood is being pumped out. Okay, how much is pumped out? 70 ml. That one during a cardiac cycle. So during one ventricular contraction, each ventricle pumps, means ventricular pump is when the ventricles are pumping, it is giving out how much amount of blood? 70 ml of blood into the body as well as to the lungs. So this 70 ml, so one ventricle is pumping, one cycle, 70 ml blood is moving out. Okay, so that is called as stroke volume. What do we call? Stroke volume. So what is cardiac output then? So imagine 70 ml of blood is pumped for one cardiac cycle. But heart rate, I told you how much it is, around 72, isn't it? 72 times the heart is beating, which means that is your heart rate. So 70 into 72 means for 1 it is 70. Like that, how many times it is beating? It is beating 72. So in a minute, if you are saying, it is beating 72 times 70 ml of blood for each 0.8 seconds, isn't it? So for each heartbeat, there is 70 ml of blood being pumped. So if you are multiplying this, then you will get what? You will get your cardiac output. It varies from person to person as well as based on the conditions, okay, healthy or weak, like that. It can vary from person to person. So what is cardiac output? Volume of blood which is pumped by the ventricles in a minute. So it has been noted that around 5 liters of blood is pumped in a person, okay, in a healthy individual. Around how much? 5 liters of blood is being pumped. So that one we call it as what? The cardiac output, okay. Now heart sound. So when you are seeing this heart sound, there are two types of sound. What are the two types of sound? One is your lub. Lub is caused when the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve closes. You know which is the tricuspid and bicuspid valve? Between the auricle and ventricle, the valve which is present is called as what? The tricuspid and bicuspid valve. So here the tricuspid and here the bicuspid is present. So when this is closing, you hear the first sound, a mediocre sound, not that hard, lub. Another sound is when the semilunar valve closes, okay. One is which is leading to the aorta is causing aortic semilunar valve. One is leading to the lungs, that is your pulmonary artery, it is closing, okay. So this valve when it closes, which is semilunar valve, when it is closing, at that time you can hear the second heart sound which is called as dub. So lub dub lub dub. Lub is a feeble sound and dub is a harsh, rough sound, okay. So why this dub is somewhat heavy compared to that of the lub? Because you can find ventricles, it's thicker, it's heavier, and it is pumping blood so that it can reach different parts of our body, okay. The next topic what we are going to discuss is ECG. ECG you would have heard, isn't it? So what is ECG? ECG is a graphical representation of the heartbeat, okay. So diagrammatically how it is represented, that is called as what? ECG, okay. So it is electrocardiograph and it is electrocardiogram. Gram is the machine and electrocardiograph is the graphical representation. So instrument electrocardiograph is used to obtain an electrocardiogram. So for seeing it in the machine, ECG, the graph which is represented is ECG, the graph, and the other one is electrocardiogram, okay. ECG is a graphical representation of the electric activity of the heart. So I told you when your heart is contracting, first which one will initiate the impulses? SA node, okay. So actually there depolarization means the change in the positive and the electron flow and all will be taking place, okay. So there the electrons means flow and all will start, action potential will be generated. So that one we call it as what? The depolarization. So when the SA node is getting activated or they are generating the impulses, you can find the first wave is produced which is called as the P wave, which is caused by the arterial depolarization. Thereafter, so what is actually happening? So when the heart SA node will contract, when start to generate impulses, you can find the auricle will contract. So you can find there is a change in the pressure. So because of which you can see the heartbeat. If you are saying that portion, there will be a peak, okay. Thereafter QRS. QRS is what? The next after this auricular systole, the blood will move to the ventricle, and thereafter you can find the heart ventricle is contracting, because AV node would have got what? The impulses, it would have transferred through bundle of His to the Purkinje fibers. Now what will contract? The ventricles will contract. And when the ventricles are contracting, I told you the ventricles are having high pressure. They have to pump the blood with very high pressure so that it reaches different parts of our body. So you can find what will happen is that you can find the next representation, how the graph will be represented. It is QRS. So this is first one is P, the second one is Q, R and S. So this is how when the ventricles are contracting, the graph will be showing. Okay. Thereafter, what will happen when after the ventricle contracts, immediately the ventricle will not come for the diastole. They will be at a bit pressure because of the pressure which has been exerted because of this QRS. You can find they will be having a bit pressure, and that will generate the next wave called as the T wave. What it is? T wave. So, how many waves are there? 3 waves are there. I will represent 3 waves. One is because of the arterial depolarization, artery is contracting. Ventricular systole, the ventricle is contracting, ventricular depolarization is taking place. And when the systole is coming to an end, there also you can find by the time they reach the end, there exceeds the peak again. That is called as the T wave. Now, if I am showing you the diagram, it will become very clear. You can find out here. So, the first, when the auricle is contracting, first wave. Okay. So, this is it. Thereafter, when the ventricle is contracting, this, and when the ventricle systole is getting completed, diastole is starting, you can find this wave. Okay. So, these 3 together represent one cardiac cycle. So, auricular contraction, ventricular contraction, ventricular systole getting end, and the diastole starting. Okay. Again, auricular contraction, ventricular contraction, and the ventricular systole is getting end and the diastole is starting. Okay. So, like that for each and every beat you can find they will be showing a graph, and from there we can make out how many times the heart is pumping. Okay. Whether it is normal or not. If this is the curve, then automatically it is normal. This graph is totally normal. Okay. And if the heart is not beating, you can understand there will be a line coming in films as well as in what is that, TV you would have seen, isn't it? So, the first, this is P wave is representing auricular systole, QRS is representing what? It is representing the ventricular systole, and the T is actually representing the end of the ventricular systole or the joint diastole, start of the joint diastole. Okay. So, that is regarding the electric means the representation of the heartbeat, the impulses, how it is represented. So, it is P followed by QRS followed by T wave. Okay. So, these all together is one heartbeat, right, one cardiac cycle. So, this representation in the graphical format, the rhythmic activity of the heart, we call it as what? ECG. Okay. So, doctors used to prescribe ECG for heart patients in order to study their nature of the waves that are generated and whether it is okay or not. So, that is regarding ECG. Hope it is clear. Next, we are moving on to the next concept, which is called as double circulation. See, our heart circulation, we call it as double circulation. Why? Because there is 2 types of circulation. One is the pulmonary circulation and another one is the systemic circulation. Okay. Listen how this pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation are different from one another. You know, the oxygen is coming into the lungs, isn't it? The oxygen is moving into the lungs to the alveoli. In the lungs, that oxygen is getting entered into the blood vessels, the pulmonary vein. Thereafter, so who is taking it? The pulmonary vein. Okay. So, the pulmonary vein which is present in the alveoli, these pulmonary vein capillaries, they are taking the oxygen, and the oxygenated blood is carried by this pulmonary vein and it is reaching the heart. Which part of the heart it will be reaching? It will be reaching the right part of our, left part of our heart. Okay. So, that is one thing which you have to note, right. Now, I will just change the color so that it will become much clear. We are discussing about now pure blood. Pure means what? Oxygenated blood. So, the oxygen is reaching the lungs, and the lungs in the alveoli, the blood capillaries, the oxygen is going, and through the vessel called as pulmonary vein, the blood is pumped into the left auricle of our heart. Now, this pulmonary vein is pumping blood into the heart, as well as this pulmonary vein, you can see 2 are there, right side 2 will be there, left side 2 will be there. Okay. So, the right side as well as the left. So, one pulmonary vein is coming and dividing into 4. How many? 4. Okay. So, 2 on the left hand side and 2 on the right hand side, which you can see the diagram. You can find left pulmonary veins, this one, and this one is your right pulmonary veins. So, what is the function of these pulmonary veins? The pulmonary veins left is pouring directly into the which one? Heart, Along with that, the pulmonary veins are giving the oxygen to the heart muscles. So, heart is also having cells, isn't it? They also need oxygenated blood. So, that oxygenated blood is being supplied by whom? This pulmonary vein to the heart itself. Along with that, they are also pouring the oxygenated blood in the left part of my heart. Okay. So, that is the role of what? This pulmonary vein. So, pulmonary vein, what it has done? It has poured the blood into the left part of my heart. Now, after this, you can find in the heart, when the heart is pumping blood, the oxygenated blood is going to different parts of my body through aorta. I told you, from the left there is a valve, semilunar valve, which is pumping the blood through the aorta. It will be going to different parts of my body. Okay. So, that is again, it is going to different parts of my body, and from there what is carried out? Oxygen is given to the cells and carbon dioxide is produced. The carbon dioxide is collected from the tissues. Who is collecting? The veins. Okay. So, the aorta, the artery is giving the oxygenated blood. Blood is given to the cells in the body, the oxygen is used up, and what is produced? Carbon dioxide is produced. Now, when you are seeing this carbon dioxide rich blood is being taken by whom? This veins. Who is collecting the carbon dioxide, deoxygenated blood? Veins, and they are bringing and giving it where? It is giving it to the right part of my heart. From there, the blood, when heart is pumping, the blood will be passed on to what? To the lungs. So, carbon dioxide will reach the lungs. From there, the carbon dioxide will move out. Now, when you are seeing this carbon dioxide is being taken, so this one, which is this blood vessel which is carrying that carbon dioxide from the heart to the lungs, it is pulmonary artery. Okay. So, I think it's a bit clear now. So, how many blood vessels we have discussed? This is pulmonary vein. Okay. This one is artery, aorta artery. This one is vein, and this one is your pulmonary artery. Now, listen. All the arteries carries oxygenated blood, except which artery? This pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is carrying what blood? Deoxygenated blood. All the veins will be carrying what blood? Deoxygenated, carbon dioxide rich blood, except which one? The pulmonary vein. Okay. Now, I can divide the circulation into two parts. So, what are the two parts of circulation? One is the pulmonary circulation and another one is the systemic circulation. What is pulmonary circulation? Circulation which is taking place between the lungs and the heart, we call it as pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary is something dealing with the lungs. Okay. So, pulmonary circulation is the circulation dealing with what? The lungs and the heart. And what is systemic circulation? Systemic circulation is the circulation dealing with the heart and different part of my body. Okay. So, the circulation which is taking place between the heart and different parts of my body is called as what? The systemic circulation. So, that is why the name is given as what? The double circulation between the lungs and the heart, and between the heart and various parts of my body. Clear? So, now you see what is double circulation? A type of blood circulation in which the blood flows through the heart twice. In this type of circulation, the pulmonary circulation is separate from the systemic. In systemic circulation, the cardiovascular system, including humans, it is responsible for carrying oxygenated blood from the heart to rest of the body and deoxygenated from rest of the body to the heart. So, you can find in systemic, from the heart to rest of the body oxygenated blood is collected, and from various parts of the body to the heart deoxygenated blood is collected. So, this is called as what? The systemic circulation. What is pulmonary circulation? The deoxygenated blood is moved from the heart to the lungs, where in the oxygenated blood is being returned to the heart, isn't it? So, here also deoxygenated blood is taken to the lungs and the oxygenated blood is brought to the heart. Okay. So, this circulation we call it as what? The pulmonary circulation. Hope it is clear. The same only pulmonary circuit this is, and this one is systemic circuit. From lungs to heart, okay. From heart to various parts of my body, oxygenated. Red is all oxygenated, oxygen rich blood. From various parts of my body, carbon dioxide rich blood to the heart. From heart to different parts of, to the lungs, it is pulmonary artery. Okay. Now, listen carefully. One more term is being discussed. So, when the blood is coming from various parts of my body, from lower part of my body, the vein which is bringing, we call it as inferior vena cava, okay, or we call it as posterior vena cava. It's different books, they have different names. So from my lower part of my body, the blood which is being brought to the heart, we call it as what? The inferior vena cava, or we call them as the posterior vena cava. Like that, from top part of my body also the blood has to be brought, deoxygenated blood, isn't it? So there one vein is bringing the blood from the region above the heart, the head, neck, from there and all the deoxygenated blood is brought by superior vena cava. What do we call them? We call them as superior vena cava. Okay. So the superior vena cava can also be called as anterior vena cava. Okay. So there is two names, one is anterior vena cava or superior vena cava. From below which one is bringing, we call it as the inferior vena cava, or we call them as the posterior vena cava. Okay. So these vena cava and what they are the veins which is collecting blood from below is inferior and which is collecting blood from above are superior. So in the heart diagram, when you have seen that term, isn't it? One is the one which is bringing from superior, that is superior vena cava, and one which is bringing from below, that one we call it as what? The inferior vena cava. Both these vena cavas are pouring blood into the right atrium. Where it is pouring to the right atrium. What blood they are pouring? They are pouring deoxygenated blood. Okay. So fine. So I think it's clear now when it comes to the structure of the heart. Now we have discussed all the parts, isn't it? You know what is aorta, you know what is pulmonary artery, left atrium, left pulmonary vein, mitral wall, left ventricle, right ventricle, inferior vena cava, tricuspid wall, right atrium, right pulmonary vein, aortic wall and superior vena cava. So all the parts I have dealt, and all these parts are very important, and you should know the left is the one who is carrying the oxygenated and the right is one which is carrying the deoxygenated blood. Oxygenated means oxygen rich and deoxygenated means carbon dioxide rich blood. Okay. Now the next topic is regulation of cardiac activity. Okay. So cardiac activity is regulated by some nodal tissues. So you know myogenic heart, we know that intrinsically SA node, AV node, bundle of His, everyone is regulating my heartbeat. But at the same time, this heartbeat, the SA node to function, it is being controlled by the nerves. Who is controlling? The nerves. So where is in the nerves this cardiac activity is regulated? The cardiac activity is regulated by the part called as medulla oblongata of our brain. So this medulla oblongata is controlling the cardiac activity, my heartbeat rate, through a system called as autonomic nervous system. What is that called? It is called as autonomic nervous system. So what do you mean by this autonomic nervous system? So this is autonomic nervous system is a type of system which is controlling your cardiac activity by having two things, that is, one is your sympathetic nervous system and another one is your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. Now listen, what is sympathetic and parasympathetic? So autonomic nervous system is a type of nervous system which is divided into sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves. So what is this parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system doing? Okay. So for example, when you see a snake, okay, you are just seeing a snake, immediately you can find, if you just listen to your heartbeat, or you are seeing somewhat screamy something, okay, or you are watching a movie which is a thriller movie, whatever it is, sometimes you can feel your heartbeat, the heartbeat rate has increased. Okay. So why this heartbeat rate is increasing? It is being influenced by your nerves. I told you heartbeat rate is also influenced by your nerves. So your heartbeat rate increases when the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for the increase in your heartbeat rate. Okay. Now after the heartbeat rate increases, after some time what will happen? You will come back to your normal, isn't it? So you are in excited state. Now gradually, after that thriller is over, automatically you can find, or you have, the snake has gone, you will come back to your normal state. So the thing is what? It is coming to back normal. For bringing back to the normal heartbeat, there are special nerves present which is controlled by whom? This parasympathetic nervous system. So, autonomic nervous system is having the capacity to increase the heartbeat by sympathetic nervous system is playing a major role for that, and autonomic nervous system can decrease the heart rate in that who is playing a major role? Parasympathetic nervous system. So, these are all nerves, sympathetic nerves, parasympathetic nerves which are regulating your heartbeat. They are increasing, they are decreasing. Like that they are regulating what? Your heartbeat. So, heartbeat is regulated first by whom? The nodal tissues. For controlling the nodal tissues, there are structures in the brain which is the nerves in the brain which is responsible. Which part it is located? In the medulla oblongata. Okay. So, in the medulla oblongata you can find ANS, autonomic nervous system, is controlling the involuntary activities. Okay. Some of your activities is being controlled by them. So, that controlling, who is responsible? You can find which one? The autonomic nervous system. That is of two types, sympathetic which increases the rate and parasympathetic which decreases the rate. Okay. So, adrenal medulla hormones, another one is that this autonomic nervous system as well as this sympathetic or parasympathetic as you speak is being controlled by the nervous system will come to action by seeing the concentration of hormones in the hormones in the blood. Okay. So, immediately when I have told you that you are seeing a snake, so in that case your heartbeat rate is increasing. Why it is increasing? Because you know there is a gland called as adrenal gland which is present just above the kidney. You can find a triangular gland which is present above the kidney, we call it as what? The adrenal gland. This adrenal gland is producing a hormone called as adrenaline. What is the hormone produced? Adrenaline. This adrenaline is produced whenever there is a stress condition. We are going to write an examination, this adrenaline will be produced. Okay. So, this adrenaline when you are saying when it is there produced in the blood, and the adrenaline loaded blood is going to the brain. Okay. So, in that brain when it reaches the medulla oblongata, if this adrenaline hormone is present, it stimulates the autonomic nervous system to control whom? The SA node, in order to increase the blood rate. So, when you are seeing all are interrelated, who and all? The hormones is controlling the ANS is controlling the nodal tissue, because of which you can find the heartbeat rate increases or decreases based on the conditions. Okay. Normally you have one, okay, which is regulated by normal medulla oblongata. There is a cardiac regulatory center which is regulating the normal one, but at times it increases and decreases based on the stressful environment. For that, hormones as well as ANS plays a major role. Okay. And the last part of the chapter is disorders of circulatory system. So, what are the different disorders caused by circulation? When you are saying, first is your hypertension. Hypertension means, you know, some people have high BP, high blood pressures and hypertension. So, high BP, normal range is what? 120. When the ventricle is contracting, it is 120 mmHg. If you are looking into the sphygmomanometer, you can find when the contraction is taking place of the ventricles, it should be 120, and when the blood is in relaxed state, the heart, it should be 80 mmHg. Okay. So, the mercury level should be 80 diastole, under systole, ventricular systole, it should be 120. If it is more than 120 or more than 80, means the systolic pressure is more than 120 and the diastolic pressure is more than 80. In that case, it is called as what? High blood pressure or hypertension. Okay. So, it should not be above what? 140 and 90. It can go till 140, 120 to 140 it can go, and from 80 to 90 it can go, but it should not go above that. If it is going above that, it can affect the vital organs. Any organs it can affect, because the pressure increases in the blood, which can affect the organs in one way or the other. Okay, it can lead to the damage of that organ. Now, the next disease is CAD, coronary heart diseases. It is also called as atherosclerosis. Okay. In this, actually what is happening is that the blood vessels which are supplying the blood to the heart. Okay, so imagine this is the heart, and in this the blood vessel is supplying the blood to the oxygenated blood, and all is to be supplied to the muscles, isn't it? They are working all the time. So they also need energy. For that, the blood vessels are supplying the blood to the heart muscles. In these blood vessel, if there is something deposited, imagine the calcium or fat or cholesterol, or if anything is getting deposited there, then what will happen? So this was the blood vessel, now something is deposited. So what will happen? It will become much narrow. Okay, so you can find it is becoming very narrow. In that case, the pressure automatically will increase, because previously the space was much, now the space has reduced. So it will lead to what? A high pressure. With that, the blood will flow into the heart, and it can cause what? The heart to get damaged, it can cause heart attack. Okay, so this one we call it as what? Coronary artery diseases. Okay, so the arteries which are becoming narrower, because of which the pressure is increasing, causing disease. Okay. Next is angina, or we call it as chest pain, acute chest pain. Some people who is having heart related complaints, 2-3 times they would have acute chest pain, thereafter 4th time maybe they are getting heart attack, and then first attack, second attack, like that it goes on. Okay. So acute chest pain we call it as what? Angina. Okay. Otherwise it is also called as angina pectoris. So it is happening again because the blood flow, enough oxygen is not reaching because of some reason, whatever, smoking can be a reason, the breathing problem is there, because of which the blood vessels are not getting enough oxygen, surface area of the bronchi is less, alveoli is less, because of which required amount of blood is not flowing. Okay, it is affecting the blood flow to the heart. So enough oxygen is not reaching the heart muscles. In that case, if the enough oxygen is not reaching the heart muscles because of whatever the reason, maybe the respiratory diseases or because of some disease, if enough oxygen is not reaching the heart, then the person is likely to suffer from acute chest pain. Okay. So that is called as what? Angina. And the last one is your heart failure. Heart failure, you know, the heart is not pumping the blood effectively. SA node is not functioning properly. 72 beats per minute has reduced. Okay. So the problem is that the heart is not pumping properly. It is also called as what? Congestive heart failure. And this can, one of the reason can be the lungs is not properly pumping the oxygen to the heart, because of which the heart is not functioning properly. The heart contraction and relaxation is not taking place at the rate in which it has to take place. So he will have what? The heart failure. Okay. Mainly the pacemaker tissue is also not functioning. In that case also it can lead to heart failure or heart attack. Okay. With this we have come to the end of the chapter, disorders of circulatory system. Hope you have understood. Take care. Thank you.